Last in Line Nation, hey, welcome to another episode of Project 222, where we interview ex-college athletes to share their story, share their testimony, share their faith, to empower you as current college athletes in a rough environment, an environment where you might have challenges to balance your faith and struggles in relationships, getting connections. As an athlete, it's hard already, but being a Christian athlete presents its own set of challenges. So we're bringing to you faith-filled leaders who have done it, who have walked your path. And today I couldn't be more honored to have Bryce Petty here as a guest on the show. Bryce was Baylor University quarterback from, I guess, 2010 to 2014, and was a two-time Big 12 champion in 2013 and 14, Offensive Player of the Year 2013, All Big 12 13 and 14, and won the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award while he was at Baylor. Was drafted in 2015 by the New York Jets in the NFL. Got to play with the Jets and the Dolphins, and so had a good career there. Man, he's done all the big time stuff there is to do in the game of football, and has walked a path that is worth talking about. So currently he's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and prominent figure in real estate and private equity. So I would love to formally welcome Bryce Petty to the show.
Man, thank you. Thank you for the intro as well, man. You did great.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's easy whenever you got those kinds of accomplishments behind your name, and people here, being in the great state of Texas that we are in, people are going to watch this from all over the country, but being in the state of Texas, I think people know you, even though they may not fully recognize you on this side of the gold face mask
Yeah, that's
when you
right.
played at Baylor, but I do know they know who you are. So, man, is there anything else about you, maybe even aside from sports, that you think might help the audience? Because these are going to be college age kids, watching this, and
Yeah.
anything they can connect with you on a personal level.
Well, shoot. I mean, I think the easiest part of my testimony in there is the fact that, man, I waited a long time. So I was there from 10 to 14, but I graduated high school in '09. And so, and that point, you don't hear about it much, but I gray shirted. So I waited, basically that following year, to where I was part of the 2010 class, and then redshirted. So it's kind of there was a period there. It's funny that I was only there for 10 and 14 when really I was kind of there, or at least out of high school for 5.5 years. But anyway, so just a long wait, a long wait for me to be doing what I felt like I should be doing, playing football. And so there's a lot of ups and downs in between there. But, the beautiful part about, kind of delayed satisfaction or gratification, if you will, is the fact that, if you do it in a humble spirit, in the way that, God's not going to ever, put you through something you can't handle, one. And two, even though it's good to have goals, it's good to have ambitions in life, but you do that with the spirit of knowing that God's going to put you in the right spot, or on the right path. And so it took me a while to kind of figure that out, but once I did, if I had it my way, I'd have been a 4-year starter, drafted number one, and it never works out better the way you have it than the way that God has it. So that's kind of like one of the main points, I guess, in my testimony that I like to share, especially with college kids, is that life is going to present challenges. It's not going to come out the way that maybe you wanted it, but it's always the right way, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I can imagine, I mean, it's hard to hear that as a young 20s, hearing about how patience was a virtue for you, and you needed to have that along the way, because everybody wants it right now, and everybody's worked to get to the point you were at, and to know that maybe you had to sort of delay that a little bit. It probably has a set of challenges. And so, man, and this Project 222, man, it comes right out of the Bible. It's talking about in 2 Timothy 2:2, where Paul's telling Timothy, like, take what I've taught you, teach it to faithful men, and so that they can
Mm-hmm.
teach others also. So it's really about investing in others and building others up, and really kind of pouring into people based on your experiences, and hopefully they can learn from them. But man, as we dive in, hearing your story about patience and waiting and some of that testimony, man, I can't, can't imagine talking about that without talking about a few mentors or people along the way that sort of helped you, like leaders that you sort of looked at from afar and wanted to try to emulate some of their characteristics. Talk about those people, and what about their leadership did you adopt in your own?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. So on the leadership front, I've always looked at my dad. My dad's always been, that guy for me. And, I know that a lot of people that aren't blessed enough to say that in terms of, a family member being that close. Your dad is a hero to some and somebody's not. And that's okay, because we all have a heavenly father, right? But,
Right.
for me, my dad was in a leadership facet. There was a sense of perfection. There was a sense of, um, in terms of doing something right, always kind of stamping your name on doing it right, and so I always, I guess, kind of gravitated towards that, especially now as a dad and as a husband. I kind of see that as a kind of, I don't know, band of the house, I guess. But so yeah, leadership role was always dad. And then spiritually, crazy enough, I had a buddy of mine that I met going into my sophomore year of college. It's Chris Walmack, and man, we did Bible studies every Monday, and would have lunch every Friday, and just kind of poured into, a kid that there is a lot of, even though as small as Waco is, it's still crazy kind of being on a national scene, coming from,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Midlothian, so it's stoplight town kind of deal. But, there's just a lot of things that kind of come with that. And so, it wasn't like it was a huge grand level by any means, but still enough for me. But so Chris was awesome, and very, instrumental in the growth of me, from a spiritual perspective as well. So
yeah. Man, it sounds like you guys kind of helped each other along the way with that too. So that's good, because I think as we go into some of these questions that I have for you, because I'm trying to get inside the brain of a college athlete, and I just had a son graduate and who played 4 years of baseball, and I got another one in that kind of along that journey now, and so I try to climb inside their heads some, and it's not always easy, but trying to imagine just connecting, like as a new college athlete, coming onto a campus where you just left a campus that you were probably the big dog, right? Or one of the more prominent
yeah.
people on campus. Like I can only imagine that it's hard to build those connections. Did you have something that helped you to do that?
The beautiful thing about sport is that I've always felt like it kind of creates its own fraternity, and you just kind of gravitate um, to people. And I say that I've always kind of been like a little social butterfly, I guess. I love kind of hearing people's stories. I should have probably taken a psychology background, honestly, because I love it. And I think I might have been, poised in the position of quarterback. You kind of have to put people in positions to be successful, so there's certain people you can yell at, there's certain people you got to, pat on the butt. And I've always just enjoyed that. I think, especially in terms of being, what we call like the BMOC, the big man on campus, in high school and coming to college, it's all about proving yourself. The grind and the process of, early morning workouts and, playing on the field, all that kind of stuff, that guys kind of tend to gravitate towards those guys that don't really care what they did in the past, because no one cares what you did in the past. Especially as like an upperclassman, the junior seniors in the locker room, they dang sure don't care what you did, in high school, because everybody's kind of competing for the same spot on the field most times. So, it was just one of those things that I just kind of put my head down and enjoyed the grind, and actually found people that also enjoyed the grind. And so that's part of that culture too, that I love about sports and the locker room, is if you do have a good culture, the culture setters are you always hear that, like thermostat, thermometer, kind of comparison. But, if you have a bunch of guys that are thermostats, man, they can establish a culture of knowing, hey, we're going to adopt these young guys and that kind of thing. And we really had that at Baylor. It was actually, pretty cool. We didn't let, guys get too big of heads coming in, and
Right.
everybody, took care of one another.
Nice. Yeah. So as we go into this question I have for you, maybe you can give me an idea of what you saw or what you dealt with. So what's the biggest challenge that these college athletes have right now? Like, let's say you're talking to Christian athletes. There's a room full of people watching you right now. What's the biggest challenge you would say would be a common denominator in that room, if you could guess, from a spiritual standpoint, from relational, whatever?
My own personal opinion of that is that people forgot how to listen.
Yeah.
You know, people get in conversations to speak rather than to listen. And I feel like that needs to be the other way around. And so especially, you know, you're always going to have, you know, social or political pressures, you know, as technology gets more and more and you know, the more and more life throws at you as you get older to learn what those pressures are, because you actually start to care. You know, it's about how can you still, you know, exemplify who you are as a human being more so than you're just, you know, your opinion. And so I really feel for, you know, our younger generation, because right now, again, this is my own personal opinion, you're exposed to so much so soon. One, and then two, everything's kind of narrated by the media, and people aren't as inclined to form their own opinion anymore. And so when you do that, you have, you know, pretty harsh grounds or foundation and something that might not be truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not, you don't care about, you know, someone else's opinion as much to learn why there is a difference there. And so, you know, understanding people, loving people, and listening to people can turn this thing back around if we you know, put it in our young leaders' minds
Mm-hmm.
now to make that a point. And if we don't, it's going to just continue kind of, you know, mount up to a boiling point to where, you know, it's just going to be the greatest country in the world that we live in now. It's just going to be really hard to live in, you know, as kids growing up.
It is. And yeah. And it's a great point, because I think we all talk about, well, we can blame it on social media. We can blame it on technology, which that is a, you know, a major factor, because I feel like we're hiding behind our posts, I think sometimes, and it
Mm-hmm.
takes the human element out of it. Right. So you're talking about listening and interacting and really starting to understand each other and embrace everybody's differences, when it's so easy to just judge somebody off a post, you know, or just say something you want to say without really making a connection or listening to somebody else. You can just kind of spout off. And so I think that, man, not that we're ever going to get rid of that, because I think it's just, it is what it is. But I think as people, we got to get back to the basics sometimes, and kind of the foundations of God and his teachings and what he wants us out of us as believers, and how to love each other from like relationship building and listening, not just from posting or liking or, you know,
Yeah.
followers and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I know everybody's dealing with that, not just Christian athletes. So man, what was a big, what about you, like personally, like being quarterback on a big school campus, like that's got to have its own issues sometimes. What was your biggest challenge, would you say, like that you had to sort of, you know, just kind of to stay grounded? Did you have anything you can share with somebody right now?
Yeah. Well, I just think, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's the identity crisis, I guess, is what I would say, you know, because I always felt like I had to be, um, I wouldn't say be something I'm not. I think that it's hard because you put yourself on or you get put on sometimes, but on a pedestal of what you think people want you to be. Because that's the crazy thing about college, man. It's the first time you're out of your house, kind of on your own. You're learning your own way. But that 18 to 21, 18 to 22 is a huge growth period.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and for a lot of people, you know, the opportunity to go out and be, you know, whoever, for most kids, college kids can't do that, you know, because there's chances they get kicked out or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But so for that for me was always a hard pressure, and understanding that it's okay to be Bryce, is okay to make mistakes as a human being, and to learn. But again, the identity part of, you know, hey, I'm not just Bryce, the football player. I play football, but
Yeah.
I'm so much more than that. You know, so you got to know who you are as John, or you know,
Yeah.
again, me as Bryce, to know that I'm more than just, you know, a football player. Especially nowadays, again, where you're talking about how, you know, somebody can post on, you know, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you get to see it. otherwise I'd never see somebody from, Spokane, Washington say that, man, Bryce sucked this game. Well, now I do. And
Right.
so, that idea of you have to perform to be liked, you have to perform to be loved. I know I'm kind of talking in circles here and rabbit trails, but that part kind of trickled into my spiritual life as well. So all of those things are kind of intertangled in that identity crisis. And so, I really like to tell kids that football or basketball or baseball is just what you do. It's not who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point, man. Cause yeah, I've said that a lot on here because people do. I mean, it's so hard not to especially when you're a really high level, good athlete and everybody's watching, it's hard not to wrap your identity up in that. And so my encouragement is the same as you. I just, dogpile on what you said. And man, I got to ask you too, did you have like this kind of defining moment, like for you and your faith, where sounds like you were brought up in a good home and probably a good spiritual foundation, but did you have a moment where you just kind of woke up and the light went on and you said, man, this is mine. Like, I'm going to own this as my faith, not my family's, not my dad's, not my buddies, was there a spiritual defining moment in your life that you could maybe talk about?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I had a vision one night. And not vision like, coat of many colors or anything, but there was an idea of, I walked into a room and I was behind somebody, so I couldn't see their face, but they were painting. And it was a big white blank canvas. But in my mind, I knew that whoever was painting was really good, like a Picasso kind of thing, and so anyways, I kind of walk around and see his face, and his face is Jesus. And when I look back at the canvas, he's painting, my life. And so he's in the corner here, and then he kind of brings it back over here. But like the whole analogy for me was just the fact that I don't know what that canvas is going to look like at the end, but he does. And so there's going to be certain times in life where things kind of bounce off or bounce in different places on that painting, but it is going to be a masterpiece when it's done, right? When you talk about Picasso, the guy, everything he painted was a masterpiece because of who he was. Jesus, because of who he is, as he paints your life on that canvas, it's going to be a masterpiece. And so for that for me, for whatever reason, it just put a different sense of joy and peace around the fact that I don't have to be in control. The fact that it doesn't matter what I do, on the field or off the field, to be Bryce and can change and impact, my world around me, not world, like, doesn't have to be, the 7 countries. It can be the country right here in your subdivision, that type of impact. And so, that was kind of like a weird way of saying it, but for me, it was just that analogy of knowing that I've got a masterpiece being painted by the one who is the greatest painter of all time, and to just love and trust the fact that that is going to be beautiful in the end. And so all that being said, it was very much, my mom was a youth minister in high school, and even growing up, and so I was always kind of in the church, but again, you always hear about the church kids and all that kind of stuff, growing up in church, and they're meant to be a certain way. And so for me, it was just kind of an aha moment of, man, this is, to your point, stamped my faith. My faith is I guess that was sophomore year of college. Yeah.
That's good. No, that's awesome. That's a cool vision. I mean, to paint that picture paints a picture, right? Like, it paints a picture of what our perspective should look like when it comes to just knowing that he's got a plan, and it doesn't always happen when we want it to, but we just kind of keep the main thing. And that's kind of the message I want to get across to these athletes is, it's bigger than this compartment you're in right now. I know everything just seems like your world is wrapped up in this one thing, right? Everything just is magnified, and life is only about this, but there is, 10 years down the road, there's something bigger. And this little part of your life as an athlete, while enjoy it, you'll have relationships for life, and you'll just build so much of your character through this. it's such a small aspect of what you're maybe meant to do down the road. Even if you play 20 years in the NFL or in professional sports, right? It's still a small, in the vast scheme of things, your life is still a small part. So, man, what would you give yourself, like sitting across from the table as yourself, 20, as a 18-year-old or whatever, right? So, you just turned 30 most recently, probably, right? I mean, I think that's all that. So 20-year-old, 18-year-old version of yourself walks into college campus, and you could give yourself one piece of advice, a couple pieces of, what would you say to yourself that maybe you wish you would have heard as a freshman?
Yeah. I mean, I think man, we were so blessed to have Coach Kaz. Coach Kaz is our strength coach. And I love that guy to death, but he always made us think differently. I've never met anybody like him, but so our freshman, orientation was pretty dang good. But for me at 30 years old, telling me, something would just be to trust the process, trust the process and enjoy the process. Because, there's a lot of days, long days that you don't have to do this in high school. You didn't have to do this in junior high. But waking up at, 5 a.m. to work out, and you have that big workout, and then you got to go to class, and you got to come back, and you got to, there's just a different kind of lifestyle change. But man, to enjoy that piece and to know again, that you're so much more than just a football player, and that's okay. And so I feel like you put a lot of that pressure on yourself at a young age to be something, to make something of yourself. And you got all this hype and all this, again, the social media world that we live in now. But you have all these things that externally put pressure on you to perform now. I would tell my younger self as an athlete, to just enjoy it, just enjoy the purity of the game. Building lasting, friendships, lifelong friendships, like you said, that kind of thing goes way beyond the field. And so, I've always been a big process guy. So I enjoy telling young kids to enjoy the process.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And it's hard to keep that perspective, but I mean, I would say it just kind of reinforces our point about, you got to get good people around you that can sort of see kind of a path you might be going down that you don't see yourself, or maybe keep you in check sometimes. Because unfortunately, when you talk about hype, I think a lot of the kids nowadays equate hype to dollars, right? So the more hype and the more notoriety, I think, equates to, an income down the road for them. And I get that. And there's really nothing I can say magically that'll change their mind on that. But at the same time, I think keep it in perspective is what you're saying, and which is golden, piece of advice, and enjoy the process and the journey. And man, get somebody around you like that. You said that strength coach, and I would assume, every guy's got one of those on campus probably, but find somebody that you can, get honesty from and truth from, but that still cares and loves you, and can adjust your perspective sometimes. And, but yeah, that's a great piece of advice to yourself. Man. So finally, like this last bit here, for somebody out there that's listening, college athlete, of course, but man, every moment kind of matters along this journey, I think, and to be present in the moment and to not take things for granted. So finish this sentence for me. I made an impact in the lives of my teammates because.
Yeah. I kind of go back to what my personality is. And so the way that I'd finish that sentence is that, impacted the teammates in my locker room by just loving them. And I truly did love each and every one of those guys, man. And it's fun to, the blood, sweat, and tears that football, kind of provides. Some other sports don't, but you just get guys in backgrounds that you'd never meet. And so it was just, again, kind of go back to what I enjoy in life is learning people's stories. But, being around kids that grew up inner city Houston, that I'd never otherwise meet, or growing up with kids in San Antonio, or, that were in Dallas and Oklahoma, and just different perspectives on life, man, that I didn't always get. So I think that's it kind of goes back to that root of a little bit of what I was talking about, in terms of where there's a huge challenge for the kiddos, today. that if you don't have a perspective of human first, then it makes life tough. And especially as football, uh, is that team, that ultimate team sport. You gotta love you guys. You gotta love the guys you're strapping up with, strapping up for, and in doing that, I really found joy, in loving those guys.
That's great. Yeah. And I imagine you still keep in contact with a lot of them too. And that's cool. And that's a good kind of a gauge on impact and real relationship is, those people that you still reach out to, I don't know, 8 years later or whatever. So man, hey, I appreciate everything that you brought to this and making yourself available. Thank you for the interview, man. It was good to meet you. Again, watched you a lot and respected your game and really appreciate you making time today for me audience. It's your journey. Enjoy the process, like you heard Bryce say, and understand how to listen and love people, and just stay engaged, man, and find somebody that you can really use as that support system, that leadership mentor that you trust, a godly person. Like, stay grounded in your faith, make it your own, and watch what God does in your life. So till next time, he's been Bryce Petty. We've been Last in Line. Be blessed.